Welcome back to Alaska Rants. I'm your host, Marcus Moore. And today, on our scavenger hunt for candidates around Alaska, we came upon Lee Ellis out here in Girdwood, Alaska, representing House District 9. Look
I
how
guess it should be
beautiful it is
like
out here.
9.
Yeah, it's not raining, so we caught it on a great day. It looks wet, but it's actually quite great out here today.
Not even wind.
Not even
Not
wind.
even wind.
So, you want to tell us why you're running for this district out here?
Yeah, I've been involved in the Girdwood community for a long time, and I was involved with the trade association that represents the breweries, wineries, and distilleries in the state of Alaska. Spent the last 6 years working on legislation, regulations regarding alcohol manufacturers, and alcohol sales, and all those kind of things. And I found out that our representative, Laddie Shaw, was going to be retiring. And I felt that our district needed someone with experience and knowledge of the legislative process because filling those shoes is going to be a big job. He was a very experienced guy, and I think this is an extremely important district and it needs good representation, and I felt that I could do that. So.
Awesome. So, working on different bills and legislation processes, some of the current issues we have today are like education reform, school vouchers, the master plan for Anchorage's school district, right? How would that all tie together with you? Because you were just recently endorsed by the Anchorage Education Board, right, for teachers?
National Education
National
Association. Yep.
Education
Yeah, yeah.
Board.
So that's the statewide group that represents all the teachers.
Yeah.
So, I think that teachers are extremely important. When we're talking about raising the youth of Alaska, having good, high quality teachers that are taken care of and treated like professionals is going to have a huge impact on our future. So, as someone who runs a small business and almost every one of my employees comes from the public education system, having people who are skilled, having people who can learn and learn new trades when they come out of high school is critically important. And so teachers are really the backbone of that system. I really do believe in growing the opportunities for vocational education at the high school level. My belief is that everyone should come out of high school either ready to go to work or ready to go to college. And I don't feel
Amen.
I don't feel like the
Yes.
system's necessarily doing that yet. As someone who came out of high school and went into the Marine Corps, and then went into the trades after that. I didn't feel like high school had necessarily prepared me for that, but it probably could have done a better job. And I feel that we tell a lot of young people to go to college, and that's the only way to be successful. And as someone who's worked in the trades for a long time, I know a lot of young people working as electricians and plumbers and truck drivers who are making excellent money, sometimes as much as 6 figures in their mid-20s. There's a ton of opportunity. This is a trade state, and we need to prepare people for all the jobs that we have in the world, not just to go to college. So,
Do you think that's kind of like an issue with our losing youth, is sending all of our kids to college out of state instead of preparing them in state, just ready to go to work out of school? You think that
yeah,
contributes to that factor?
yeah. I mean, I think if we were able to help young people walk out of high school and walk into a job making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, I think that would probably strongly encourage them to stay.
I like where your mind's
Yeah.
at. Yeah.
Well, it's what again. I've as a month into the millennial generation, I'm an elder millennial.
Yep.
And my generation was told the whole time I was growing up, you got to go to college, you got to go to college, you got to go to college. And now I have friends who have an immense amount of student debt, who are trying just to buy a home, and they're almost 40 years old and they still can't afford it. Um, and this education that they paid for has not earned them the opportunity to make enough money to be living that American dream that we've always wanted.
That's
And I
right.
think if you start earning money early, you can always go back to college later. My mom started college when she was 50 years old and now has a master's in education. So there's never a time when you can't go to college. But if you can start earning money early in your life, that's going to set you up much better with your retirement, with developing good credit, with all those kind of things. And I think that's
Yep.
critical to help our young people reach the reality and reach their dreams that they want to achieve. So
Yeah, awesome. So, the reality is that our state spends money like it's monopoly money, right? I kind of feel that way. We got a big monopoly chest called the permanent fund dividend,
mm-hmm.
right? everything you see now in the articles are all, oh, it's going to be destroyed. It's out of, we're not going to be able to recover from this, and nobody quite understands what's going on because we have like what $85 billion in the bank right now.
Yeah,
So
close to like
could
81.
you
Yeah.
sort of just reference on like why the state feels like we're broke when we have all this money, and what that has to do with our future up here with the
Well, I
gym?
think you have to bifurcate it a little bit. So the state budget itself is tight. This year I think it was something like $13.8 billion, and probably about a quarter to a third of that came from the federal government for transportation projects and other matching funding programs that the federal government does. And then the PFD is a separate issue. The PFD itself, if we continue to draw at 5% based on the earnings that it's made, then there is the potential that we will burn up the earnings reserve, and then we will not have money to allocate to state budgets. So, part of that, the percent of market value comes to the state, part of it goes for inflation proofing. So, because of the rate of inflation, because of all those kind of things, so we have this issue with the PFD beginning to drop in value if we overdraw from it. So
Okay.
that's more of what the issue is. So um, I think the reality that I like to tell people is it's not just about the PFD or the PF, the permanent fund. The PFD is the cash that we get, and the tighter the budget, the more cash we get.
Yes, sir. So you want to bring a little bit of financial stability and control to
Yeah,
Alaska?
yeah, absolutely. Well, this is what I tell people. This is one thing that really motivates me too and keeps me up at night is that it's not that Alaska is spending money like it's monopoly money. It's the federal government is, and the federal government literally prints money. If you and I did that, we'd be in prison. So
Wouldn't that be nice?
yeah, I know someone who went to prison for printing money. Didn't go well. But so when we think about what's going to happen at some point is that the federal government's going to have to tighten its belt, and so it's not just that amount of permanent fund money that we use to fund the state budget. It's those federal receipts that we receive for matching grants for projects and all those kind of things. At some point, that money is also going to dry up. So now you're talking about billions of dollars that we're going to be short potentially in the future.
Yeah.
So I think that we do have to start considering other revenue options. We can't just rely on, market draws or value draws from the permanent fund. We can't just rely on, federal receipts. We're going to need to rely on our own revenue streams to come in.
So we have natural minerals, right, all
Yep.
over the state. With the governor's new plan for ESG, right? I'm not really quite happy with that, right? But how do you feel? Do you think that's a good move for Alaska? Or do you think that's going to hinder our abilities to actually go after some, create more mines up here to get our natural resources out of the ground? Because that's the only way to get it out of the ground is a mine for them.
Yeah, I'd have to take a deeper look at that plan. I probably wouldn't be able to comment on it just
Yeah,
yet.
100%.
I would definitely need to
I'm
do
still
more
trying to
research.
understand,
Yeah,
right, and
yeah,
figure it all out
yeah.
because nothing in the state or anything in the government is ever made just easy for you. They don't draw it out in a coloring book.
No, as someone who worked on regulations, I worked really hard to make sure alcohol regulations. I worked on 130 something pages of alcohol regulations, and I did my best to make them as easy to understand as possible.
And even then,
Even then, boy, they were still a challenge for folks. And because of legal language, things have to be a certain way. And
Yeah.
legal language is different than the language you and I speak. So
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Well, as long as we can all agree on a definition, right? I think we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our election coming up. We got ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
Some people are for it, some people are against. I would say, I don't really want to quote a specific number out, but how would you feel it affects our elections in Alaska right now?
I would say I've more looked at its effect on my district in particular, and I would say I've probably done a little less research on how it affected districts statewide. In our district, it was pretty interesting. Governor Dunleavy still won in the district. And then Senator Murkowski won in the district. Mary Paltola won outright without ranked choice voting in this district. So it really only had an effect on one particular race as far as ranked choice voting, and that was the Senate District E race. So that was I believe the only race in 22 that there was a roll-up of votes on second choices.
Okay.
So statewide, I would have to take a look at that information. It's a lot of information to go over, so I try to stay focused on my space.
Word.
Yeah, but yeah. So I
What's
think.
on the ballot? So.
Well, yeah, and
you
we'll
know?
see. We'll see how the Supreme Court decides on it. But yeah,
Yep,
it's on
very
the
true.
ballot. I will be highly interested to see how Alaskans vote on it. I think as candidates generally, I think especially a lot of folks who are elected officials generally try to stay out of the fray on ballot measures. We all have our own opinions about things, but
Yep.
I've had a couple of people ask me that, and it's hard enough just to run your own candidacy.
Yep. Then to worry about
That's
other
what,
measures.
yeah, I had
on
someone
that.
ask me, they go like, what do
Totally
you think about
can
ballot
understand.
measure 2? And I'm like, I didn't even know what it was yet because I haven't had a chance to read about it.
So I guess there's two on, right? You have the
yeah, that and the
minimum
minimum
wage,
wage one.
increase. You're a business owner, right?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I think the minimum wage issue is a particular sticking point for the hospitality industry. So we have tip earning employees.
Okay.
And so $15 an hour is a challenge because we have servers who are probably making about, on average, let's say $40 to $50 an hour with tip out wages. And so we have
Pretty decent.
Yeah, we've had servers that on an hourly basis were doing better than me as the president. So it's a good job for sure. And then we have other people who are not on tip wages. So if you are trying to pay out tip wage employees higher, then that kind of can drag from the pool of other people that don't live on tip wages.
Yep.
So other states have what's called tip wage credit. So I'm concerned about being a ballot measure because I think that would be something we'd have to address, and that I would prefer to address an issue like that in the legislature as opposed to a ballot measure, because that's a very nuanced issue that occurs within one particular industry that affects 17,000 workers in the state.
Yep.
So I would say that's the restaurant industry in the state is already struggling. So it would be, I think, tough for us to get that information out to voters before they consider that ballot measure. Mm-hmm. And then that might create a lot of issues for business owners. Like, I'm totally for people getting paid well.
Fair wages.
Yeah,
right.
like
But at
100%,
$40 to $50.
Well,
on
and I
average,
think even
that's
15
That's pretty decent.
It's hard to find a job up here that pays that low, to be honest, right now. I mean, it's such a tight labor market that
Yep.
if you're only offering $15 an hour, you're going to have probably a tough time finding people to work.
I feel that.
So, I'm not sure that 15 is even the right number or whatever it is, but there's other things that go into it that have to be considered other than just a general broad minimum wage increase. So,
Word.
Yeah.
You got anything to finish this interview off by asking people to come vote, or
yeah,
why they should go
make
vote?
sure to come out August 20th and vote in the primary. Please vote for me. I would appreciate your vote, and please vote on November 5th. Please just vote. I know that it feels like maybe sometimes it doesn't matter, but it always matters.
Yes, sir.
And the more you vote, the more you get engaged. And then maybe one day you'll be standing here in the Girdwood Park serving hot dogs and trying to earn people's votes. So there you go.
Hey, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.